Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I've done everything right, yet I still feel empty inside? You've achieved, you've conquered, you've built a life that others envy, and people call you unstoppable, powerful, and fearless. And yet, late at night, when the world goes quiet, you feel a hollow space inside you that no success, no title, no recognition seems to fill. You're not weak. You're not broken. You are strong beyond measure. And that's exactly why this emptiness can feel so confusing. Because here's the truth. Most people will never tell you. Power alone is not enough. Strength alone does not heal. And achievement alone cannot satisfy the soul. You were taught to do, to prove, to perform, and you excelled. But somewhere along the way, the world taught you to ignore what you really want, to bury your emotions, to tie your worth to results, and to forget that fulfillment comes from something deeper than applause or accomplishment. Tonight, we're going to uncover why so many powerful women feel this emptiness, and more importantly, how to transform strength, success, and influence into a life that feels alive, meaningful, and deeply satisfying. Achievement without fulfillment is one of the quietest struggles powerful women face, because from the outside, everything looks complete, yet on the inside, something essential feels missing and confusing. You did what society promised would bring happiness. You set goals, you sacrificed. You pushed past fear and fatigue. You became competent, capable, admired. You learned how to win, how to lead, how to survive in demanding environments, and each achievement gave you a momentary rush, a sense of relief, a brief feeling of being enough, but that feeling never stayed long. Because achievement alone feeds the ego, not the soul, and the soul is what longs for fulfillment. Many powerful women were conditioned early to believe that love, approval, and safety are earned through performance, so success became the language of worth. Every promotion, every milestone, every external validation became proof that you mattered. And while this strategy works remarkably well in the world, it quietly disconnects you from your inner world, because fulfillment does not come from proving value. It comes from experiencing meaning, and meaning cannot be measured or applauded. It must be felt. The emptiness appears when life becomes a series of checklists instead of a lived experience, when your days are filled with responsibility but not with emotional nourishment, when you are constantly giving output but rarely receiving input that restores you achievement. Asks, what can I accomplish? Fulfillment asks, what makes me feel alive? And when those two are not aligned, even the strongest woman begins to feel drained, disconnected, and quietly dissatisfied without fully understanding why. Powerful women are often praised for endurance, for being able to carry heavy loads without complaint. But what no one acknowledges is that endurance without joy becomes emotional starvation you can survive for years on. Discipline and strength. But eventually your inner self starts whispering that survival is not the same. As living, the applause fades, the milestones blur together, and you realize you have been running a race without ever asking if it leads somewhere that matters to you. The danger of achievement without fulfillment is that it teaches you to ignore your emotional signals you override. Fatigue, loneliness, sadness, and longing, because stopping feels like failure. So instead of listening, you push harder. You tell yourself you should be grateful. You remind yourself how far you have come, but gratitude cannot replace alignment, and progress cannot replace purpose. The heart does not respond to logic, it responds to connection. Over time, this disconnect creates a subtle numbness. You still function, you still perform, you still succeed, but the color drains from your experience. Laughter feels lighter, love feels distant, rest feels unproductive, and joy feels undeserved. This is not because something is wrong with you. It is because you have been living in a constant state of output. Without replenishment, achievement takes energy. Fulfillment gives energy, and when life only takes you, begin to feel empty, no matter how impressive your accomplishments are. Many powerful women fear that if they slow down or question their path, everything they built will collapse. But fulfillment does not require destruction, it requires honesty. It asks you to tell the truth about what you need, what you miss, what you want beyond survival, beyond validation, beyond image. It asks you to remember that you are not a machine designed to produce results. You are a human being designed to experience connection, meaning, love, joy. Achievement without fulfillment also isolates, because when your identity is built around being strong, capable, and in control, vulnerability feels dangerous. You stop asking for help. You stop expressing needs. You stop allowing yourself to be held emotionally, and strength becomes a wall rather than a foundation. The emptiness deepens, not because you are alone, but because you do not allow yourself to be fully seen. Fulfillment begins when achievement becomes a tool, not an identity. When success supports your values, instead of replacing them. When your goals are aligned with who you are, not just who you learn to be. Powerful women do not need less ambition. They need ambition that includes their emotional well-being, their relationships, their inner peace, their sense of purpose beyond productivity. And when achievement serves fulfillment rather than replaces it, life no longer feels like an endless pursuit, but a meaningful expression of who you truly are. Emotional suppression behind strength is one of the most invisible patterns powerful women carry because it is often rewarded, applauded, and mistaken. For resilience, you learned early that being emotional made you vulnerable, and vulnerability felt unsafe. So you adapted, you learned to stay composed, to stay in control, to stay functional no matter what was happening inside. You became the woman who does not fall apart, who does not ask for too much, who keeps moving forward even when she is hurting, and the world praised you for it without realizing the cost. Strength became your language of survival, not because you wanted to be distant, but because it was the fastest way to feel protected. You learned that emotions slow things down, that feelings complicate decisions, that expressing pain invites judgment, so you trained yourself to compartmentalize grief, disappointment, loneliness, and fear. You didn't eliminate them, you simply buried them under productivity, competence, and composure. And over time, that burial felt normal. Powerful women are often taught that emotions are a liability, especially in leadership, success, and independence, so you replaced emotional expression with logic and control. You told yourself that feelings could wait, that there was work to do, people depending on you, goals to achieve. And each time you postponed your emotional needs, you reinforced the belief that they were secondary, unimportant, or inconvenient. The problem is emotions do not disappear. When ignored, they store themselves in the body, in the nervous system, in the quiet tension you carry in your chest, and the exhaustion that sleep does not fix, in the irritability you cannot explain, in the sense of emptiness that shows up when everything seems fine. Emotional suppression does not make you stronger. It makes you disconnected from yourself, and disconnection is exhausting. Behind the strong exterior is often a woman who has not felt deeply held or emotionally safe in a long time, not because no one offered, but because strength taught her to refuse. She learned to be the giver, not the receiver, the listener, not the one who shares, the supporter, not the one who leans, and over time she forgot how to access her own emotional language. She can articulate goals, strategies, and outcomes, but struggles to name what she feels, what she needs, or what she longs for. Suppressed emotions often show up indirectly. You may feel restless without reason, numb during moments that should feel joyful, overly reactive to small things, or deeply tired. Despite success, this is not weakness. It is emotional backlog, years of unprocessed experience, asking to be acknowledged, but strength keeps saying later, not now, keep going, hold it together. The longer this continues, the more foreign your inner world begins to feel. Many powerful women fear that if they allow themselves to feel fully, everything they have held back will come rushing out and overwhelm them. So they stay guarded, they maintain control. Why stay busy? Because busyness feels safer than stillness. Stillness invites feeling, and feels unpredictable. But emotions are not dangerous, they are information, and when you suppress them, you lose access to your own internal guidance system. Emotional suppression also impacts intimacy, because connection requires openness, and openness requires emotional presence. When you are always strong, you become admired, but not always known. People see your capability, but not your tenderness, your reliability, but not your vulnerability. And this creates a quiet loneliness, where you are surrounded by people yet feel unseen, because you are not allowing your full self to be experienced. Strength without emotional expression turns into self-abandonment. You show up for everyone else, but not for your own inner experience. You validate others' feelings while dismissing your own. You encourage others to rest while pushing yourself harder. You become the example of resilience while privately feeling depleted and misunderstood. And this pattern can continue for years, because from the outside, nothing appears wrong. Releasing emotional suppression does not mean losing control or falling apart. It means allowing emotions to move instead of stagnate. It means giving yourself permission to feel without judgment, to express without explanation, to be human without apology. True strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the capacity to experience emotion without being ruled by it, and powerful women already have the discipline and awareness to do this when they allow themselves the space. When emotions are acknowledged, its strength becomes sustainable. Instead of draining, presence replaces tension. Clarity replaces numbness, and the emptiness begins to soften, not because life became easier, but because you stopped carrying everything alone inside yourself. The identity trap begins. The moment your sense of self becomes tied to what you produce rather than who you are. And for powerful women, this often happens quietly, and gradually you are praised for being capable, reliable, high-performing, and successful. And over time, those traits stop being things you do and start becoming who you believe you are. You are no longer a woman who achieves. You are the achiever. And once that shift happens, your worth feels conditional, even if no one ever says it out loud. When identity is built on performance, rest starts to feel like laziness. Slowing down feels irresponsible, and saying no feels like letting people down. Because if you stop producing, you fear you might disappear. You have learned that love, respect, and security come from being useful, exceptional, and dependable. So you keep delivering even when you are tired, even when your heart feels distant, even when your inner voice is asking for something different. Powerful women in the identity trap often feel proud of their strength, but secretly terrified of losing it because their entire sense of stability is built on staying competent and control an impressive pie. Lure does not just threaten goals, it threatens identity. Mistakes feel heavier, criticism cuts deeper, and comparison becomes exhausting because it feels personal. You are not just protecting your work, you are protecting who you believe you must be to matter. This trap disconnects you from authenticity because when identity is fixed, you stop exploring, you stop asking, who am I becoming, and start asking, how do I maintain this version of myself? Growth becomes risky because it might disrupt the image you have built. You may ignore new desires, changing values, or inner discomfort because acknowledging them would require redefining yourself, and redefining feels unsafe when your life is structured around a specific role. Many powerful women experience a quiet grief in this trap because they sense parts of themselves that never fully developed: creativity, softness, playfulness, curiosity, rest, but there was no space for them because they did not contribute to the identity that earned validation. Those parts did not disappear, they simply waited and waited. It creates a low-level sadness that shows up as emptiness, dissatisfaction, or restlessness without a clear cause. The identity trap also creates pressure in relationships because when you are identified as the strong one, the successful one, the dependable one, it becomes difficult to be messy, uncertain, or vulnerable. You may feel you have to show up fully put together even with the people closest to you, and this prevents deep emotional intimacy because, connection requires truth, not performance, and when you are always performing, you are never fully present. Another cost of the identity trap is rigidity. You feel locked into choices, paths, and expectations that no longer fit, but changing them feels like failure. You may stay in roles, relationships, or routines that drain you because leaving would challenge the story of who you are supposed to be. You confuse consistency with integrity when, in reality, integrity sometimes requires evolution. The emptiness that grows from the identity trap is not because you lack achievement, it is because your inner world has been narrowed to one dimension. You are complex, layered, and dynamic, but when identity becomes singular, everything else feels like a threat rather than an expression of self, and living inside a narrow identity eventually feels suffocating, no matter how successful it looks. Freedom begins when you separate worth from output. When you remember that achievement is something you do, not something you are. When identity becomes flexible instead of fixed, you give yourself permission to change, to explore, to fail, to rest, and to grow in new directions. You stop asking, how do I maintain this image, and start asking, what feels true now? Powerful women do not lose their strength when they step out of the identity trap. They reclaim it. Strength becomes grounded rather than performative. Confidence becomes calm rather than defensive, and self-worth becomes internal rather than negotiated through rest. Also, you begin to experience yourself as a human first and a high performer second. This shift dissolves emptiness because you are no longer living to protect an identity, but to express a life that is real, alive, and evolving. Disconnection from true desires is a silent struggle that affects many powerful women because over time, the constant demands of responsibility, expectation, and ambition drown out the voice of what they truly want deep inside. From early on, you were taught to prioritize productivity, success, and the needs of others over your own inner longings. You learn to focus on what matters to everyone else first, believing that your desire could wait, that they were secondary or even indulgent, and the more you achieved, the louder the external world became, while the whispers of your own heart grew quieter until you barely recognized them. Powerful women often wake up one day realizing that life looks perfect on the outside yet feels hollow on the inside, and this is because when your focus is on obligation and achievement, your personal desires are buried under a mountain of responsibility. You may have cultivated influence, respect, and stability, but the cost is a deep disconnect from what sparks joy, what ignites passion, and what makes life feel meaningful. You may reach for accolades and approval because they are tangible, but the things that feed the soul, play, connection, rest, love, creativity, get postponed indefinitely. The disconnection happens soon. Lie, often without awareness. You begin to define your choices by what looks strategic or impressive rather than what feels satisfying or authentic. When offered opportunities, you ask, will this advance my career, protect my image, or satisfy someone else's expectation? Rarely do you ask, will this make me feel alive? The more your decisions are filtered through external validation, the further you drift from the truth of your own desires. And that drift creates a quiet emptiness that no achievement can fill. Over time, this pattern produces a persistent sense of dissatisfaction. Even when you accomplish what you set out to achieve, there is a lingering feeling of incompleteness, because fulfillment is not simply about checking boxes. It is about aligning your life with what you truly want. what excites you, and what resonates with your deepest self. Desire is a compass, and ignoring it is like sailing without a map. You move, you succeed, yet you are not heading toward the place your soul longs for. The pressure to maintain control and meet expectations often compounds the disconnection. You may fear that honoring your desires feels selfish or irresponsible, especially if you have been conditioned to place others first or to prove your worth through output. Yet when your inner desires are consistently silenced, your inner world starts to feel foreign, empty, and disconnected. And this emptiness is not a sign of weakness, but a signal that your life is out of alignment with your true self. This disconnection also affects emotional and relational intimacy, because when you cannot identify or express your own desires, you cannot fully communicate your needs to others. Relationships may feel transactional or superficial even when they are otherwise functional. The more you suppress your desire, yes, the more isolated you feel within your own success, and the more loneliness creeps in despite appearances of control and competence. The good news is that reconnecting with your desires is not selfish or impractical. It is necessary for sustainable power, fulfillment, and energy. True influence comes not from being admired from the outside, but from being aligned from the inside. When you acknowledge what you want, give it permission to exist, and integrate it into your life, you regain clarity, passion, the vitality that has been muted by years of suppression and neglect. Reconnection requires attention, honesty, and courage. It may begin with asking yourself questions you have avoided. What do I genuinely enjoy? What excites me? What do I want if no one is watching? What brings me joy beyond achievement or obligation? This process often requires quiet reflection, courage to say no to obligations that do not serve you, and discipline to take small but meaningful steps toward integrating your true desires into daily life. When desires are honored, life transforms because alignment replaces exhaustion, energy replaces numbness, and passion replaces emptiness. You begin to recognize that your power is not only in what you do, but in the clarity and authenticity with which you live. The emptiness dissolves not because circumstances have changed, but because your internal compass has been recalibrated, and your life becomes an expression of who you are rather than only what you achieve. Living disconnected from your desires may feel safe because it is familiar, but it creates a quiet suffering that no accolade, recognition, or success can fix. The moment you begin to notice what you truly want and allow yourself to act on it, you step into a new level of power, one that is rooted in authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment, and from that alignment, everything in life becomes richer, deeper, and more meaningful. Power needs purpose, and connection is a reality that many powerful women often overlook because the world teaches them that strength, ambition, and achievement are enough to define a successful life. From a young age, you are trained to measure yourself by outcomes, by milestones, by influence, and by the ability to overcome challenges and navigate obstacles. And while they are impressive markers, they do not fill the deeper human need for meaning and connection. Even when you have power, resources, and respect, a life without purpose or genuine connection can feel hollow and unsatisfying. Purpose is not a tagline or a career goal. It is the reason your soul wakes up and wants to create, contribute, and leave an imprint beyond the surface. Powerful women often confuse purpose with productivity, believing that the next promotion, the next accolade, or the next achievement will create fulfillment. Yet fulfillment does not come from accomplishment alone. Purpose gives direction to your power. It transforms energy into influence that matters. It allows your strength to be a force for something bigger than yourself. And without it, even the most extraordinary success can feel meaningless. Connection is equally critical because humans are wired to give and receive, to be seen and understood, to share life and experience intimacy. Many powerful women excel at leading, supporting, and caring for others, but neglect to cultivate connection that nourishes their own heart. You can inspire a team, mentor others, and shape organizations, yet if you do not allow yourself to be truly seen and loved for who you are beyond your achievements, there's a persistent emptiness that no recognition can fill. Power without connection is isolation, and isolation drains energy faster than any challenge ever could. The combination of purpose and connection is what transforms strength into fulfillment. When your power is aligned with a meaningful reason, it becomes sustainable and generative instead of exhausting. When your achievements serve not only yourself but a vision, a mission, or a community, you feel rooted rather than restless. Connection amplifies this effect because relationships, trust, and shared experiences make life richer, grounding your power in real human experience rather than abstract accomplishments. Many powerful women struggle with this because of early conditioning to be independent, self-reliant, and invulnerable. You may fear that needing connection or purpose is a weakness or distraction, yet ignoring these needs is what creates the quiet emptiness behind every impressive facade. Power alone cannot satisfy the soul because the soul craves resonance, a sense that what you do matters and that it matters in a context of relationships and shared humanity. Purpose and connection also act as a compass in moments of challenge and doubt. When life feels chaotic, when expectations are heavy, or when success alone does not feel enough, purpose provides clarity and direction. Connection provides support, encouragement, and reflection that prevent burnout, indecision, and emotional isolation. Without these, power can become a hollow performance, a way to keep proving worth while masking inner dissatisfaction. Cultivating purpose begins with reflection and honesty. It requires asking yourself, what impact do you want it to have? What contribution feel meaningful? And what values guide your life beyond success or recognition? Cultivating connection requires openness, vulnerability, and intentionality. It requires choosing relationships and communities that see you, honor you, and allow you to show up fully without performing or maintaining an image. Both purpose and connection demand courage because they require stepping beyond external validation into internal truth. When power is integrated with purpose and connection, life shifts profoundly. Decisions are no longer made solely for advancement or approval, but are informed by deeper alignment with values, passions, and relationships. Achievements are celebrated not only for status, but for the meaningful effect they create. Challenges become opportunities to express influence in ways that resonate with your true self and your community. Energy flows rather than drains because your efforts are tied to something that feels worth living for. The emptiness that many powerful women experience is not a flaw in their capability, intelligence, or determination. It is a signal that power alone is insufficient, without alignment to something greater and connection to those who matter. Recognizing this need is not a concession, but an awakening to what makes life fully alive. Purpose gives your actions weight. Connection gives your life warmth. And together, they transform strength from a solitary force into a radiant expression that uplifts not only yourself, but everyone your life touches. Without purpose and connection, power becomes heavy, isolating and exhausting. With them, it becomes liberating, energizing, and deeply fulfilling because strength that serves meaning and is shared through authentic relationships creates a life that is not only impressive on the outside, but deeply alive on the inside. The emptiness that powerful women feel is not a reflection of weakness or failure, but a signal that life requires more than achievement, strength, or recognition alone. True fulfillment comes when success is paired with emotional honesty, when identity is aligned with authenticity, when desires are acknowledged and honored, and when power is connected to purpose and meaningful relationships. Strength without depth, achievement without alignment, and independence without connection can never satisfy the soul. The most powerful women are not those who do it all perfectly. They are the women who dare to look inward, feel deeply, act courageous on what truly matters, and allow their lives to reflect not just what they have accomplished, but who they are at their core. When you embrace your feelings, honor your desires, expand your identity beyond performance, and anchor your power in purpose and connection, emptiness dissolves and fulfillment becomes not just a dream, but a lived reality.